Hello, sweet friends. Today we are making the gift trio. So this is meant to be a project that you can make for gifts for the Christmas season if you'd like. It is a set of a pair of mittens, a pair of slippers, and a headband or ear warmer. So you can mix and match for your gifts for this season for friends and family. You can make all of this for yourself, whatever you'd like to do, but I'm just going to share the things that I used for this. I use this Karen Smash Cake, and it is in the color Caramel Crunch. So it is a beautiful color. This is only partial skein, obviously, but a beautiful color. I love these very warm tones and like the mixture of these colors together. And just to give you a little view of what it is that we're doing. So this is a mitten. This is how the colors work up in that. And we're going to start on how to make the mittens. And I'm going to be using a 5.5 millimeter hook, and this is going off of my hand measurements. I would say that my hands are large for women's hands. So if you want to adjust these sizes at all, you can feel free to do this to whatever size you would like. This stitch works with any stitch count. So feel free to adjust this to whatever you want. You could make men's sizes, women's sizes, children's sizes. It really depends on what you would like to use this pattern for. But the number count that I'm giving you is for a women's size. And like I said, my hands are, I think, a little bit larger for women's sizes. So if you want to adjust at all, you can. I'll show you where we are stopping and starting so that you know how to adjust the size for your own hand size. All right, so let's get started with this mitten. I'm going to start with a slip knot. If you need any help on beginner stitches, I have a playlist that I have in the description for you for first time beginner crochet stitches and all the slip stitches, chains, all of that. So if you need help for that or help with that, I have that up in the description or down in the description for you and up here in the card for you to go ahead and check out. But we are going to start with a slip knot, and I'm going to chain 28. All right, so 28, and that is going to go around my wrist like that. So this is going to be the start of your hand. So you can make it smaller or larger depending on how you would like it to fit. But I'm starting with 28 chains. Now I'm going to connect the first chain with the last chain that I made. So I'm just making sure that the chain is flat and hasn't been twisted. And then I'm just going to slip stitch into that first chain. So once I've connected my chain, I'm going to start with a half double crochet in the next chain. So I connected with a slip stitch into this chain, and then this chain, I'm going to do my half double crochet. So I'm going to do that all the way around my chain. After you've reached your 28 stitches, 28 half double crochets, you will come back up to this first stitch that you had. You can see that it kind of glides right up into the next stitch. So we are not going to do anything with chaining to get to your next row. All we're going to do is continue working into the stitches all the way around. So I'm just going to be working in the back loop only for the remainder of these stitches for this glove. So back loop only is what we're going to be working into. And I'm going to continue working all the way around, and I'm going to do a total of 5 rows. And how I measure that is I just keep an eye on this tail, and when I reach 5 rows, and I'll show you how to count that. When I reach 5 rows, I'll show you the next step for the finger hole, or for the thumb hole, and how we're going to do that. So go ahead and work your 5 rows, and I'll meet back with you when we're ready to add the thumb. Now, once you have 5 rows, you can check to make sure that you have 5 rows by using your tail as a reference. Since we are working in a spiral instead of going up each row, this is how I count. So I have my tail. On the left side of my tail, I want 5 rows. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And on the right side of my tail, I want 5 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So even though it's offset, we do have 5 rows on either side of the tail. So that is a total of 5 rows for us. That's an easy way to check it. So for the thumb hole, what we're going to do is a double crochet into the next stitch. And then we are going to chain 4. I'm going to skip 4 stitches and work in the 5th stitch with a double crochet. All right, so if you're making a child-size glove, you could go down a chain. So you would do 3 chains and skip 3 stitches. If you're doing a men's size, you could do 5 or 6 chains and then skipping 5 or 6 stitches. So it's just whatever size thumb hole you want, however many chains you make, that's how many stitches you skip underneath. All right, and now we're going to continue around with half double crochets in each stitch, and I will meet back with you when we hit our chain space for our thumb hole. Once we are back around to our thumb hole, we are just going to half double crochet in those chains. So 4 chains, 4 half double crochets. And then continue on in every stitch with a half double crochet. So I worked into the double crochets on either side just the same as any other stitch, and then worked in the chains across with half double crochets. So then you are going to use your thumb hole as a reference, and we are going to complete 9 rows. So this being row 1, and then you're going to count up to 9 rows. So continue doing that, and I will meet back up with you when we have reached our 9 rows for this part of the glove, or part of the mitten. Once you have gotten your 9 rows, you can count them from the thumb hole. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And that is where we left off. So I'm going to grab that loop there. The way we want to see how this is fitting is you want to put it on and see where it's lining up on my fingers here. So it's covering my pinky, and it's at about the last knuckle of my other 3 fingers. So that is about where we want it to land for right now. And that is your 9 rows. So if you need more or less, go ahead and do whatever it is that you need for this section. Now we are going to start decreasing to add the rounded part of the top of the mitten up here. We are going to do that with a half double crochet 2 together, and that is going to be, I like to do it this way, so I'm going to go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop. You've got 3 loops on your hook, wrap around and go through 3. So instead of wrapping your yarn before you go into a stitch, we're just pulling up a loop in 2 stitches and then pulling them together. All right, so the next stitch is going to be a regular half double. And then you're going to do a half double 2 together again with these next 2 stitches. And it's just going to alternate that, where it's half double 2 together, 1 half double, 2 together, 1 half double, and do that all the way around. So again, for my 2 together, I'm going in, pulling up a loop, going into the next stitch, pulling up a loop, wrap around, pull through all 3. And then a regular half double. And I'm going to do this all the way around my mitten. And I am back around to the beginning of my row, and I'm going to do that for another round. So I left off on 2 together, so I'm going to do a regular half double. All right, so I have 2 rows of decreases with on every other stitch. Now I'm going to do a row of all decreases. So I've got my 2 rows of decreases on every other, and now I'm going to decrease on every stitch. So I have a remainder of 6 stitches left at the top of my mitten, and you may have more or less depending on the size, but I'm going to cut a longer tail than usual because we're going to sew in the end there. So I'm going to do a chain. I had a little knot there, unfortunately, but we have that, and we're going to sew that in. So I'm going to take my tapestry needle or my yarn needle and thread that. And I am just going to go into every stitch like this. That knot is going to be a little bit of a problem, but we'll work with it. All right, go in that way. Go into every stitch. I'm going to pull that tight, and it's going to close up the end of my mitten there. And then I am going to weave my yarn back and forth 3 times. First, I'm going to loop it around here real quick. Since that thread is really holding the end of that together, I'm just going to pull it through almost all the way and then go through this little loop here and pull that tight. And then I'm just going to weave my yarn through my project back and forth. I typically do 3 times, but because it's holding that in place, I might do a few more passes. That's why you want to leave an extra long tail for tying in this this part of your glove or mitten. I keep calling it a glove. All right, so now that that is sewn in, I can cut my yarn right next to my piece and it will not come unraveled. Now we're going to start with our thumb. Now for the thumb hole, what we are going to do is put a single crochet into each of the skipped stitches, 2 singles in each side of the double crochets, and 4 stitches across the chain that we did on the top. So it's going to be a total of 12 single crochets, and we're working in the back loop only. So I have my yarn on my hook, I'm doing a slip stitch, chain 1, and I'm single crocheting into that same space and single crocheting all the way across the 4 skip stitches on the bottom, 2 single crochets in the side of the double crochets, and 4 single crochets into the chain from the skipped stitches that we did. And then 2 more single crochets on the side of the last double crochet. Now when we get around to our first single crochet, all we're going to do is continue working into that next stitch. So a single crochet in the back loop only of that first single, and we are going to work our way around until we have 8 rows for this thumb. I will meet back with you at the end of those 8 rows so you can see what it looks like, and then the next step of how we close up the thumb. When you get to the end of your 8 rows for your thumb, you are going to slip stitch into your next stitch here, slip stitch, chain 1, going to cut a longer tail because we're going to use that to close up the tip of our thumb, but this is what it looks like on. So you can just see the very end of my thumb. It's almost all the way covered. So that's what it's going to look like if you're doing a smaller or larger size. That's where you want it to land. I'm going to thread my needle. I'm going to do the same thing with this that I did with the tip of the mitten part. So I'm just going to go into each stitch. I'm going in both loops. Just going through both loops of all the stitches all the way around, so all 12. Just like that, and you're going to pull that closed. Nice and snug. I'm going to do a little knot here, so I'm pulling the yarn through almost all of the way and then going back through that loop and pulling that tight. And now I'm going to weave my yarn back and forth at least 3 times, but I would recommend doing more than that. So I have my finger on the inside of the thumb so that I don't sew any of the thumb together so that you can't get your thumb in there, because I've done that. It's not fun. I'm also, I think, going to take my yarn through the stitches a little bit more to see if I can snug up that hole there. It didn't get as tight as I wanted it to this time. So if you're finding that that is happening, just go through the stitches at the opening of the thumb and just pull it tight. All right, so I'm going to weave this back and forth a few more times and then cut my yarn. All right. now for the cuff, and I'm going to show you how to do that one. I'm just going to show you what this looks like on so far, everything tied in. All right, now let's add, you can tie these ends in, just do it the same way, just weave it around. If you find that your thumb hole was left a little bit of space there, just take one of the tails from where you connected, or just take the tail of the yarn that you connected your thumb to. As I'll show you quick. Just take this tail of where you connected your yarn to. I'm going to throw it up here in the front part of it so you can see it better. You see that has a little bit of a hole there. I'm just going to take this and just weave it back and forth a few times to close that up. Just crisscross it over a little bit. Just weave it into the stitches around it, and that'll close up really nicely. See there? All right, and then I'm going to weave it back and forth. I try to weave into the same color, but because there's so many colors moving around with this colorway, it really is not a big deal. They're all intertwined a lot anyways, but it's just habit. I'm going to do one more pass, and then I'm going to clip my yarn. Here we go. So that hole is closed up nicely. You really can't see it anymore. Right now we're going to do the ribbing on the cuff. So I'm going to start with a slip knot again. And you can attach anywhere on your mitten, but we're going to be working on the opposite side of this chain that we started with. That was the beginning 28 chain that we started with. So you can attach your yarn anywhere there with a slip stitch, and we're going to chain 8. All right, and then we are going to work our ribbing back and forth and attach it to the mitten as we go. So we are going to work in the second chain from the hook with single crochets. So you'll end up with 7 singles all the way down. All right, now that we have gotten here, we're going to slip stitch into 2 of these chains. So there's one chain, going to slip stitch, and then slip stitch into the next chain. All right, and we're going to turn our work. We're going to skip those 2 chains. See those 2 chains that we made? We're going to skip those, and we're going to work in the back loop only with a single crochet. So single crochet in the back loop only for these 7 stitches, or this first 6 stitches, and then I'll show you on the last stitch what I'm going to do. All right, so that was 6 single crochets. I'm going to do a single crochet in both loops on the last stitch. So I've got both loops on there. It gives it a nice secure edge if you do it that way. All right, so chain 1 and turn. And we're working in the back loop only again, all the way down. 7 single crochets. All right, we are at our mitten again, so I'm going to slip stitch into 2, and we are going to continue doing this back and forth, but we are going to attach with 2 slip stitches, 2 slip stitches, 3 slip stitches. So it's going to be attaching 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. We're going to continue going in that pattern so that it cinches in the wrist of the mitten just a little bit. So this was our second 2 slip stitch. So I'm skipping my 2 slip stitches and I'm going to work back loop only for the first 6. And then in both of those loops, I'm going to do another single crochet. All right, chain 1, turn my work, and single crochet in the back loop only over all 7 of these stitches. And then we have gotten to our 3 slip stitches into the side of the glove, or mitten, sorry. Let's see, there's 1, there's 2, and there's 3. So 3 slip stitches, turn our work, make sure we're skipping 3, 1, 2, 3, and working back loop only single crochets into the first 6 stitches and a single crochet into both loops of the last stitch. All right, so you're just going to continue doing that all the way around. And remember, it is attaching with 2 slip stitches, 2 slip stitches, 3 slip stitches, and it keeps going the same. 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. Do that all the way around. I'll meet you when we meet up back here, and I will show you how to attach the beginning and the end of the cuff. Once you have completed all of your ribbing rows, you are going to chain 1 and cut quite a long tail because you are going to use that to sew up your seam. So go ahead and cut a long tail. I did a chain 1, and then I'm just going to pull that all the way through and pull that tight. And now I'm going to thread my needle. And I'm going to put both of those ends together, so my beginning and my end, and I'm just going to sew those both together. I just like to catch one strand from, or one loop from this side and one loop from this side, and just do your best to line it up, but it's really not going to be very visible, especially if you're using this colored yarn. But we're just going to continue sewing up this side, just catching a loop on one side and a loop on the other. And going all the way down till you reach your mitten. And then all of those are closed up. Make sure you don't have any holes there at the end. All right. And now I'm going to weave my yarn back and forth a few times. Actually, let me do a little bit of a knot. So I'm going to go into another thread here, make a little, pull my yarn almost all the way through till I have a little loop there. Just going to put my needle through there and then pull that tight. All right, and then I'm going to just weave my yarn back and forth a few times to hide those tails, or hide that tail. All right, I'm going to clip my yarn. And that is it for the mitten. Let's put these on so you can see them. My one mitten, two mittens. Super comfy, super cozy. Love it. Super, super easy. All right. And that is it for the mittens. Now let's start on our next project. Now for my slipper, I am going to be making a hexagon for this slipper. So it ends up being an L shape. You close up the toe, the bottom of the foot, and the leg. And what this piece looks like is just a giant hexagon. So it's a hexagon with square sides. So it's like a 6-sided square. If you've made a hexagon sweater, then you already know how this is assembled. But let's get started on how to build that hexagon. So what you're going to start with is a magic ring. And if you don't want to use a magic ring, you can do a chain 4 and then attach that to make a ring. And once I have that ring and I've got my chain 1, I'm going to chain 1 more. That's going to count as my first half double crochet. Now I'm going to put 2 more half doubles into the ring. All right, just like that. I'm going to chain 2 for my corner and 3 more half doubles into the ring. Chain 2 for your next corner and 3 half doubles into the ring. And we are going to do this so that we have a total of 6 sides. So it's chain 2, 3 half doubles, chain 2 all the way around until we have our 6 sides, and that 3 half double section equals a side. So right now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. If I was doing a regular square, I would stop there, but I still have 2 more sides to do. Another 3 half doubles. Chain 2 and 3 more half doubles into that ring, and that is our last side. And for my last corner, I like to just chain 1. And then to close up our magic ring, we've got our 2 loops and our tail. So I'm going to pull on this tail to see which one of these 2 loops moves, and then I know which one to pull on to loosen or to tighten this ring. All right, so I see that one is moving. So I'm going to take the one that moved. I'm going to pull the other strand closed and then pull that tail, and it closes up the other loop. All right, so you've got a 6-sided first row here, and I'm going to attach to the first half double crochet that I made, and that was my chain 2. I'm going to slip stitch into my chain 2 that I started at the beginning of this row because that counts as our first half double crochet. So slip stitch right into there, and then I have my corner space right there that I just created with that chain 1 and that slip stitch. So now I'm going to chain 2 again, and I'm going to put another half double crochet into that space that I just worked, or that I just created. So one more half double in that section. All right, and then I am going to be working across these actual stitches across. I'm going to skip my first stitch. So that was the one that we worked our slip stitch into on this first corner. I'm going to skip that one. I'm going to do half double crochets in the back loop only of the next 2 stitches here. So half double in the next 2. And then I'm going to do 2 half double crochets into this corner space. Going to chain 2 and do another 2 half double crochets into that corner space. That same one that we just worked into. All right, and then I'm going to skip the first half double of this side as well, and it naturally falls right underneath where your half doubles already are. So it's easy to skip over it, but just make sure you're skipping the right one, because that one right there is considered the first stitch. So we're going to skip over that one, and we're going to work into the next 2 half double crochets in the back loop only. All right, and then we're going to do 2 more half double crochets into this corner space. Chain 2 and 2 more half doubles into that same corner space. All right, again, we are at our side. The first stitch is falling right underneath my 2 half double crochets, so I'm going to skip that one and work into the next 2 half double crochets with a half double crochet in the back loop only of both of those. So 1 and 2. And then I'm going to work my corner again, which is always going to be 2 half doubles, chain 2, 2 half doubles right into that corner chain space. So there's 2, chain 2, and 2 more half double crochet into that chain space. All right, and again, skipping the first stitch, we're going to work into the next 2 stitches, half double crochet in the back loop only. And then 2 half double crochets into the corner. And remember, each corner is 2 half doubles, chain 2, 2 half doubles. Okay, my next side, I'm skipping my first stitch and working into the next 2 stitches, half double crochet in the back loop only. We are going to be working in the back loop only of all of our stitches for this section of the slipper. So I did my 2 half doubles. I'm going to work 2 half doubles, chain 2, 2 half doubles, and then again skipping my first stitch and then working into my next 2 stitches in the back loop only. And we are going to be skipping that first stitch of each side section every time on each row that we do for this slipper. All right, so we have made it back to our corner. I have a chain 2 space, or I have a chain 2 over here that counts as my first half double crochet. So I need to work the second half of this corner, so that's 2 more half double crochets. I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to slip stitch into that top of that chain 2 space, or that chain 2 that we made. So slip stitch into that, and that makes up our corner. You can see we've got 6 sides here. I can still kind of flatten it out at this point, but it will start curling as we grow this. So we are going to continue our rows, and we are going to be starting our row with chain 2 and working a half double crochet into that corner space that we chained from. And then you are going to be skipping for each side, you're going to be skipping the first half double crochet of each side. So skipping the first one after that first corner. I'm going to go over it again with you, but I just want to give you a summary of what this section looks like. So skipping the first stitch of every side, and then you're going to be working in the back loop only of each of the rest of the stitches across the side. Each corner is going to be 2 half doubles, chain 2, 2 half doubles, and then it just repeats all the way around until you get to your last space. Then you're going to do your 2 half double crochets in the last corner to complete that corner, since you worked the first half at the beginning. And then you're going to chain 1 and slip stitch into the beginning chain 2 space. That counts as a half double crochet. All right, so now it's just this row is going to be repeated all the way through the main portion of the slipper. And we are going to chain 2 again. It counts as our first half double crochet. Now we're going to work into that corner space right below it with a half double crochet. Going to skip that first stitch that we had. The first stitch, it naturally just lands right under the corner half double crochets, so we're just going to skip that and work in the rest of the half double crochets. I will put up on the screen which side count you'll have for each row. We are doing a total of 9 rows, but I will put the stitch count of each section in between, because the first row was 2, or the second row I should say. Second row had 2 stitches between the corners. So these were our corners. I know that some of this yarn is dark. It's hard to see, but all right. So our corners are here, but we had the 2 half double crochets there. And then we had those 2 half doubles in between our corners. All right. So for this one, between our corners, we will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches between our corners. And each side is going to grow by 3 stitches as we go, because we are skipping that first stitch. So I will put the count on the screen of how many spaces you will have in between each row. I'll also put it in the description so you can reference that. We're going to continue with half double crochets across the row. This row is supposed to have 5 in between our corners. And when I say between our corners, I count these first 2 half double crochets as part of the corner. And then the stitches between those 2 half double crochets in the corner space are the ones that I'm going to put the count up on the screen. All right, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and working in the back loop only for those stitches. And then I'm going to work my corner of 2 half doubles, chain 2, 2 half doubles. And again, I'm going to do 5 half doubles on this next row. I did my 5. Now I'm going to do my corners. It's 2 half doubles, chain 2, 2 half doubles, and then I'm going to do my 5 half doubles all the way across this side. And then my corner, 2 half doubles, chain 2, 2 half doubles, working 5 stitches in the back loop only across my side. And another corner of 2 half doubles, chain 2, 2 half doubles, and 5 half double crochets across the side in the back loop only. Two half doubles in the corner, chain 2, and 2 more half doubles in that same corner. Five half doubles across your side. Now I'm back at my first corner, so I'm doing 2 more half doubles in that corner space. Chain 1 and slip stitch into the top of that first chain 2 that we made. That counts as a half double crochet. All right, so that was row 3. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3 rows, and for our 4th row we are going to have 8 half doubles in between our corner, and again our corner counts as the 2 half doubles that are in the corner space in there, and then we are counting, the count that I'm giving you are the half doubles between those stitches that are worked in your corner spaces. So from here on out, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So our 4th row is going to have 8 stitches in between our corners. Row 5 is going to have 11 stitches between our corners. Row 6 is going to have 14 stitches between our corners. Row 7 is going to have 17 stitches between our corners. Row 8 is going to have 20 stitches between our corners. Row 9 is going to have 23 stitches between our corners. So we are going to meet back up here, and I'm going to show you how to add the ribbing onto your slipper. This is how you measure the size of the slipper for your foot size. Now I can't show you on my foot, but I'll show you on my hand. So you want the length here to be that your toes are just popping out when you try it on, that your toes are just popping up about that much, just like the mitten that we did. So you just want the very tip of your toes to be sticking up out of this squared edge here, because that's the toe. And then that will leave us that much space to make the toe, the curved toe shape for you. So how to check the width of it: you want your side to look, so when you put your foot on it, like if you lay this on the ground, you put your foot on top of your slipper, you want it to show about that much on either side. So let's say this is the side of my foot. So about that much there and that much there. That's how much you want to show on either side. And you want your toes to be about that far past the edge. And that is how you would measure that. This, if you're using acrylic yarn like I am, it will stretch. If you're using cotton or something like that that doesn't give a lot of stretch to it, then you may want to go a little bit larger than that. But for acrylic that does stretch, that's the way that I determined if it was large enough for my foot. Once you have completed your main portion of your slipper, you're going to have a hexagon. So the way that you're going to fold this will be in half and half. So I take my 2 corners here and I'm going to fold them over on each other. Right there, match those corners up. If you end up folding it the wrong direction, it's just going to look like this. And if you see that, you didn't do anything wrong with your hexagon. You just need to move it down a corner, and then it'll line up. I know I did that one time, and I was like, oh no, I ruined my whole project. It was just matching the wrong corner. So, and then we are going to start our ribbing. So we're going to be working our ribbing around the top part of our slipper. So we are going to start with a chain 8. All right, so now for our ribbing, it's just very similar to the mittens that we did if you watched that section. So we are just going to be working down our chain. I'm going to skip my first chain and work a single crochet into my next chain, and then in each chain all the way down this chain here. So you should have a total of 7 single crochets when you reach the end of your chain. And once you reach the end of your chain, you are going to slip stitch into 2 stitches. All right, so I'm coming out of this one, so I'm not going to count that. I'm going to slip stitch into the next 2 stitches. All right, and then I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to skip my first slip stitches, or skip the 2 slip stitches that I made, and I'm going to put a single crochet in the back loop only of each of those stitches. And actually I'm going to only do the first 6, and I'll show you what I'm going to do on the 7th. All right, in the 7th stitch, I'm going to work in both loops, so I give it a more secure edge. So just a slip stitch, or I'm sorry, a single crochet into that last stitch, chain 1, turn my work, and work in the back loop only of all 7 stitches until you get back to your slipper. Right, and you reach the, get back to your slipper, you're going to do the same thing and slip stitch into 2 stitches on your slipper, turn your work, and in here you can go into the back loop only, or you can go into both loops. It doesn't matter, whatever you prefer is fine. All right, so turn our work, skipping the first 2 slip stitches and working a single crochet into each stitch till you get to your last single crochet, and then I work into both loops for that last stitch. Chain 1, turn my work, and just the same thing, we're going to continue this all the way around your slipper. I'll do it one more time with you. Single crochet in the back loop only of all 7 stitches, and then do my 2 slip stitches into my slipper, turn my work, work all the way back, working in the back loop only of 6, and then on the 7th one I work into the both loops to give it a little bit more security on this edge. All right, I'll meet back up with you when we have our cuff all finished, and I'll show you how to sew up the rest of the slipper. Now, when you have completed your cuff, we are going to leave a really nice long string, and you want that string to be double what it is to wrap all the way around here, just to give you enough sewing space. You won't need to use all of it, but it's just nice to have that amount. So double what it will take to go all the way around this part of your foot, or around the slipper. So now I'm going to take a yarn needle or tapestry needle, and I'm going to thread that. Then we are going to place the sides together. So I've got my two cuffs together, and then you can see the rest of the L shape of the slipper. And I'm just going to stitch. I'm just going to take one strand from this side and one strand from this side, and just try to make it line up as well as possible. And I'm just going to do a whip stitch, so I'm going in from one side and out the other, and I'm doing that the same on every stitch. And you're just going to do this all the way down the side, and then we're also going to go all the way around the bottom of the foot. And you want to make it nice and loose so that you can't tell that there is any bulk to that. And the reason why we only want to pick up one stitch from each side is so that we don't make the seam bulky, because it is going to run along the bottom of your foot, and you don't want to add any bumpy bulk to the bottom of your foot, because that would just be uncomfortable to walk on. So we're just going to go all the way down the side. I like to match stitch for stitch as much as possible. It just makes it pretty easy to stay on track. And then I'll meet you when we get to our corner to do our little turn, which we're just going around the corner. There's nothing fancy that we're doing. So I am at my corner, and then we're just going to continue doing the same thing around the corner. So I'm just being very minimal about the stitches that I catch. I want to make sure that the corner is all closed up, but I don't want to do too many extra stitches because I don't want to make it bulky, especially on this foot area. So I'm going to continue down the bottom of the foot, and then I'll show you what we're going to do with the toe. Once you have seamed up the back of the slipper and the foot, the bottom of the slipper, I'm going to show you how to do the tapered toe. But before that, I just want to tie off this thread that we are working with and sew in my ends. So now what we're going to do is take our yarn, do a slip knot, and we're just going to attach it to where the seam is here. It really doesn't matter where you attach it, that's just where I choose to start. So just attach with a slip knot. I'm going to chain one, and then in that same stitch I'm going to do a half double crochet, and then in the next two stitches I'm still working in the back loop only for these, but I'm going to be working two of those together. So this is going to be the same steps that we did for the mitten if you have made that, but we're going to be alternating one half double crochet, two half double crochets together, one half double, two half doubles together. So we'll go over that. So I'm on the two together, so I just like to go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, wrap around my yarn, and go through 3. That's how I do my 2 together. All right, we're doing a regular half double now. And then 2 together, pull up a loop, pull up a loop, pull through all 3. And just do this all the way around until we reach our starting point. Now when you've reached your starting space, we're going to slip stitch into that first stitch. And it doesn't matter what stitch you end on, if it's a regular half double or a 2 together. We're just doing this to make the decreases so that the toe curves. You don't need to end on any specific stitch. All right, so slip stitch into the first half double crochet, chain 1, and we're going to do the same thing that we did this row. So I'm going to do a half double crochet into that first stitch, back loop only, and then 2 together, half double, 2 together, and then I'll meet back up with you when we reach our starting point. And I have worked my last stitch, so I'm just going to slip stitch into that first half double that we made. And I'm going to chain 1, and now I'm going to be working 2 together in every stitch all the way around. So in the same one that I slip stitched in, and the next. 2 together. So you're doing 2 together in every stitch all the way around. Chain 1, and we're going to cut a long tail because we're going to sew in or sew up the last bit of our toe here. So I'm going to get a needle, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into every stitch. So next stitch, and I'm going to go under both loops for each one. And if you feel like you need to do another row of decreases, you can feel free to do that if you feel like your toe is too open. All right, so then, because mine is about maybe a nickel size, right? And then you're just going to pull that tight. And that's going to close up. Now I'm going to do a little knot here. And then I'm going to sew in my ends. I like to do this with my hand in the sock because I have been known to sew 2 sides together and then you can't get your foot in. So I like to do it this way. You don't need to. So just go back and forth 3 or 4 times. And then you can cut your yarn. And there's your sock. You have 2. Now for the headband, you can make this fit your head depending on how you want it to fit. I'm going to start with 65 chains. So I'm just going to start with a slip knot and chain 65. All right, 65 chains. I'm going to slip stitch into the first chain, And I just like to lay it out to make sure that my chain stays nice and straight. And then I'm going to slip stitch into the first chain that I made. All right, and then I'm going to do a half double crochet into each chain all the way around, and I'll have 65 half double crochets when I get around to the end of this chain. So I'm at the end of my chain, and you can see right here is the first half double crochet that I made. So I worked into the chain, that was my last stitch that I made, and now I'm going to work right into my half double crochet. So just work right in there, back loop only. We are going to be working in the back loop only for the entire headband. So half double crochet in the back loop only. And we are going to do 8 rows of half double crochet. So you can see, you can use the tail as a reference. So you can see there's 1 row, 2 rows, and on this side there's only 1 row. So you will have 8 rows that you can count, 8 rows on this side, 8 rows on this side, and then I'll show you the next step. So then our last row is going to be a slip stitch in the back loop only all the way around. Got slip stitch in the back loop only. That's just going to give the opposite side just a little bit more structure, like the chain side. And then I will meet back up with you at the end of this row where we finish it off. I have reached the end of this slip stitch row, so I'm just going to slip stitch into my first slip stitch here, there, chain 1, and I'm going to cut my yarn long enough to weave in my ends. I'm going to pull that through, pull it tight, and then I'm going to take a tapestry needle or a yarn needle, and I'm just going to weave my ends back and forth into my work just to hide those ends so they don't come unraveled. I like to do 3 or 4 passes. I think that makes it pretty secure. If you would like to make your headband gathered on the top so that it adds a little bit of something extra to your headband, you could just take a piece of yarn on your needle and just put the yarn in one side and just weave it back and forth, skip every other row like this, and then come out the other side like that. And then on the back side, you just tie those ends together and just leave long enough tails so that you can sew those ends in. So you're just going to pull that tight and knot that a couple times, and then you will weave in your ends. But that is what your headband will look like if you would like to add that extra little gather on the front of it. All right, so that is it for our headband tutorial. I hope you had a wonderful time with me today on this Christmas gift trio that you could use for gifts for friends and family, or you can make it for yourself and enjoy it for yourself. But thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful week and you find joy in the little things.